Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about what this cookie can teach us about how to save more money and accumulate more wealth.
Welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, where we talk about the human side of money. Join us as we dive beyond the numbers, unpacking the psychology of money to equip you with the tools you need to be wise in wealth.
Welcome back to Wisdom and Wealth. I'm Brendan Frazier, Chief Behavioral Officer at RFG Advisory. And last night when I walked into the kitchen after a long day at work, I strolled in and on the counter I saw a cookie. I looked at the cookie and I thought to myself, you do not need to eat that. You should not eat that. Tomorrow you will regret it. If you want to lose weight, if you want to stay in decent shape, if you want to stay married, you will not eat that cookie. But then there's this other voice in my head that went, you should definitely eat the cookie. Think about how good that tastes. You can worry about tomorrow. In fact, you won't eat dessert tomorrow. You can work out and you'll work it off. This battle's going on back and forth in my mind. I put it back down, walked over to the couch, started watching TV with my wife. 30 minutes later, the cookie was gone. What I just described there is one of the most notorious rivalries in human behavior. It's the battle between our current self and our future self. It's based on a concept called future discounting that says we place more importance on current rewards than future rewards. In other words, I prioritized the taste of that cookie over what I would look like as a result or how I would feel afterwards. The current self is selfish. It wants you to do what feels good in the moment, despite what it might mean to the future self. In fact, Hal Hershfield, in his research, he wrote the book called The Future Self. What he says is that we see our future selves as nothing more than a stranger. And we see this play out with our money and our finances all the time as well. You get paid, you've got some money, and you sit there and you go, do I want to spend it today or should I save it for tomorrow? Do I want to go and take this vacation today or do I need to save it so that in 30 years I can retire or so that in 30 years I can make sure that I still have money to live off of? It's this constant battle that goes back and forth. Do we prioritize our current self and our future self? And if we see our future self as nothing more than a stranger, what that means is that we're just as likely to save our money for the neighbor down the street that we've never met than we are ourselves in 30 years. In a study from Morningstar, Sarah Newcomb asked a group of people, when you think about your finances, how far out do you tend to think and plan? What she found was those who said 10 years or more had saved and accumulated significantly more wealth than anybody that said less than 10 years. It's what she calls the mental time horizon. And the farther out your mental time horizon, the more likely you are to save and invest for your future self. So the question becomes, how do we bridge the gap between our current self and our future self? Well, one way you could do it is through face aging technology. Hal Hershfield, again, took a group of people and said, hey, I'm going to give you some money to use or to spend or to invest. One group, they just got the money, had to make the decision. The other group got to see a face-aged image of themselves where their skin had become wrinkled, they had white hair. It basically transported them. It was like mental time travel, taking them 20, 30, 40 years into the future to create a more sympathy around their future self so they could get a feel for what their future self would look like. And what it did was it increased the rate of savings by almost 2 times. That's one way you can bridge the gap between your current and your future self. But aside from using face aging technology, what are some other ways you can extend your mental time horizon or get more in touch with your future self to make better financial decisions? The easiest way to do it right away is just to get really clear and specific with any goals that you have. So for example, instead of saying, I want to start saving so that I can retire in the future, or I'm going to save so that I can make sure that I can do whatever it is 30 years from now, set more descriptive, clear goals. That's way too vague. Say, I want to save $50,000 in the next 5 years. Clarity creates better outcomes. Another thing you can do, take your vague goals and turn them into a vivid vision with clarity around exactly what you want it to look like. For example, here's what I mean. Let's say your goal is to be able to retire at 65. That's a great start, but that's what we consider to be a vague goal. We want to take vague goals and turn them into vivid visions with clarity and description. So when you say you want to retire at 65, what are you going to be doing? Who are you going to be with? How often are you going to go? What's it going to be like when you're there? Start asking yourself these questions and craft a vivid vision of what that's actually going to look like. One of my favorite examples of all time was a client that I worked with who said, I don't want to retire at 65. What I want to do is I want to go to Disney World 2 times per year. One time we're going to stay at the Swan and Dolphin Hotel. The other time we're going to buy a house off property. But when we're there, we want to go out to eat at some of the restaurants a few nights of the week. But what's most important to us, we want to make sure we carve out time when the grandkids go to bed, that we can stay up and have game night with our kids, just like we used to do at Disney World when they were growing up. Now that is a vivid vision. And here's the last thing. There's always a battle between the current and the future self. The current self always gets priority. Sometimes you have to think about, what can I put in place to benefit my future self? It's what we call commitment devices. Decisions made in the present when you're in a logical state that you're bound to in the future that can help prioritize your future self. For example, something like automating your savings. The current self, when you get paid, isn't gonna want to save for the future. It's gonna wanna live in the present and take a vacation and buy a new car. So if you can automate your savings to where you don't let your current self get in on that decision, you're rewarding your future self as a result. Other things you can do are create rules in advance of things happening that will dictate how you're gonna behave when it comes around. Again, for example, let's say you're gonna receive a lump sum of money, maybe it's a bonus, maybe it's an inheritance, whatever it is. Instead of getting all that money and letting your current self make the decision, come up with a plan and a rule beforehand and say, I'm gonna save this percent of that amount towards the future. This battle between the current and the future self, again, is one of the most notorious rivalries in human behavior. The more you can bridge the gap between your current self and your future self, the more likely you are to be able to save more money and accumulate more wealth. If nothing else, whatever you do, don't eat the cookie. If you want more information, more insights like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when the next video comes out. Again, I'm Brendan Frazier. Until next time, stay wise and well.